today's format, we're going to have 5 TDO users come up and give a brief story of what happened to them, and then I'm going to kind of tie it all together and discuss some things that you can do in TDO to monitor some of this. I do have a cut sheet for you that is down here on the stage. I will try to get them passed around while the speakers are speaking and I'm not up here talking to you guys. I would like to first welcome Dr. Ben Gullo. He has a practice, in New York, and if you wouldn't mind coming up and joining me, I'm going to have you take the mic. And his lovely wife, Sharon. And I will let you guys take it away.
Okay, well, thanks,
Thank
Allison. As you probably can tell, this is Gary's sister. So, we had to come out here. How can you turn down family? It's ridiculous. I'm not an endodontist. Around 1988, 89, 90, we were embezzled. And it's interesting. I mean, who would embezzle me? Who would embezzle you? I'm a terrific guy. I treat my staff very well. I pay them a fair salary, bonuses, benefits. We took trips, cruises, to the Caribbean, all sorts of stuff like that. Looked out for them when they had problems. Nobody would embezzle me. Nobody would embezzle you guys. Oh, it happens. And Sharon is here to keep me on track a little bit because I'm not a public speaker. Anyway, how'd this happen? How did we find out about this? We hired a college kid to come in over the summer and help us with things like filing and all this before we were paperless. And at the end of the time, Pam, who was the embezzler, came to me and said, we don't need this gal. I said, well, okay. She was only hired for the summer. So we let her go. Oh, right after that, I got a letter from Tracy, was her name. She said, something is happening in your office that's not right financially. And so I thought, sounds like sour grapes to me, but I'm going to check this out. So I went to the rest of the staff and asked them a question, something like this, without trying to direct them. In your opinion, is there anything you have to tell me about the practice? I'm not leading them anyplace. Everyone said, Pam is doing something illegal. She's taking money or doing something. So I said, whoa, this has got to be true. Now, Pam had been with me for 18 years. Most of my staff they've been with me forever. We just lost a chairside who had been there 35 years. So, I trusted these people implicitly. So Sharon and I decided to look over the checkbook, and we saw some crazy things. There was a check written to me, signed by me. And we said, what the heck is this? Went to our accountant, and he said, yeah, that's sort of strange. Well, could you do an audit? Sure. He came back and said, I didn't see any really red flags. She is a sloppy bookkeeper, but I really don't see anything wrong. So I said, sloppy bookkeeper. This gal was the kind that never had a hair out of place. Her work area was meticulous. I was proud of her. After one of her divorces, she put herself through school, and guess what? Accounting. Her bookkeeping was sloppy? Not a chance. So I went to my friend who was an attorney, and I said, told him the story. He said, you really need to get a forensic accountant. And so why don't you take what?
Well, before that, we had decided to have meet with the bank president in a small community. We knew him personally, to plan a sting so that we would have hard evidence, because we pretty much knew on a gut level that she was taking money, but we didn't know just how she was doing it. So we decided to make an appointment with the bank president. The night that we planned to meet with the bank president, our house burned down.
It was like a perfect storm. Anyway, so we decided that she had gone on vacation. It was the beginning of the year, January. Our house burned on the 16th of January. She had gone on vacation for two weeks, had worked a week. She then came back, we fired her. We said, we're gonna stop the bleeding right here. I'll digress a little bit. She then went to the labor board and got us for all her benefits for the full year. So that's something you have to look into. So the forensic accountant then...
In the manual, you need to make
Yeah,
it
you have to
very clear cut what that benefits are, their, what is
all the
word?
stipulations of their employment.
Yeah,
you know,
so that
you
they
know.
can't get full year benefits if they only work 1 week.
So anyway, sure, tell them about the forensic accountant a little
So
bit.
we hired a forensic accountant, and I would advocate that if you think that you're embezzled or there's some evidence, hire a forensic accountant. He was very, very thorough. He interviewed all the staff. I asked them what they thought was happening. He even asked them if Ben was having an affair with Pam. And after he interviewed everyone, he took Ben out on the back porch and asked him the same question.
So I told him, she's screwing me, but I'm not enjoying it.
Yes, he was.
Hey, believe me. So,
And it was the funniest.
yeah, that was the only humorous thing that came out of this whole affair, I'll tell you.
But the reason that we were so preoccupied with the rest of our lives, we had 3 kids in college. I was working full-time. Ben was working full-time. Ben was also involved in numerous real estate dealings. We were building condos in the Adirondacks. Why we were doing this, I have no idea.
We're going on. You sometimes get too busy to take track of which one. So what did she do? I'll give you this example. Say you have receipts on a day, collection of $1,000, and 200 of it is in cash. She would steal the cash. Okay. Well, you say, well, that's going to show up on the deposit slip. They won't balance the deposit slip and the day sheet. Well, back in those days, our computer system printed all the checks, payroll and all the disbursement stuff, and then would number them, which is nuts. Today, we don't do that at all. She would come to me, before a busy meeting or something like that, before I'm going on vacation. She said, can you sign this, like 20 checks, a stack of them? Can you sign these for me? I said, sure. I'm late. Okay, sign. And then she would keep a couple of them, or one, or whatever. That's what she did. She go back to the $1,000, take the $200, put it in her pocket, deposit it in her account, which is what screwed her, and then write a check from me to me into my account. Interesting. The balance, the deposit slip said $1,000. The day sheet said $1,000. Everything balanced. Everything's hunky-dory. But we realized something was up. So what did we do?
The forensic accountant said, well, if I do this audit, it's going to cost you $30,000. So what I'm going to do for you is write a template of what you need to do, how you need to do it. You collect the data, and then you can do with the data what you want, whether you want to go to the DA or whatever. So that, luckily, we had 3 kids on summer vacation, and we hired them to go through all the checks from the present day up to 2 years prior. And we found a pattern. And the pattern was the kiting of the checks. So we took all this data. It took us 2 to 3 months to collect the data. We took it to the DA, and he looked over it. He said, I'll take this case.
It was very confusing. She probably learned how to do this in one of her forensic accounting classes. You know. So, what did we learn from all this?
Well, to backtrack, initially Ben said, we are not going to take this to trial because I don't want the publicity, the bad publicity. I don't want people to think that I'm stupid because I got embezzled. And a lot of us would think that way. However, she started a rumor that we started the fire in our house with our 2 kids in the house because we needed the money. That did it. That did it.
Our 10-year-old and our 16-year-old. I mean, she started doing stuff like this. Another rumor they started was Sharon was stealing the money. I said, for God's sake, she gets all the money anyway. Why would she steal? I'm lucky to get anything. So then, you know. Anyway, so what did we learn from all this, honey?
What did we change?
What did we change?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Sharon came into the office to take over all the finances.
And then I did take the money. No.
You have to have somebody you can trust implicitly. Family, immediate family, you know, or somebody. Today, my son Greg, he's my boss now. He's a dentist as well. And he, every morning, goes through all of the bills, signs the checks that are being paid. We also have another accountant, not the one that screwed up, but that pays the bills and gives us advice like that. So he's on top of everything. And he also makes the deposits at lunch every day. So you really have a handle on what's happening, although probably somebody smart could do it anyway. What else did we learn? We learned something about, you know, trust. It was tough for us. You know, we put a lot of faith in people, and you get sort of jaundiced, you know, and you're cynical. But we realize that's not going anyplace. And
well, your trust in people is endangered, and Ben and I are very trusting people, and that's the way we like to be. We don't like to be cynical, but I think you have to open your eyes to some of the red flags that are going on. You're a professional person. You may read people very, very well, and go with your gut feeling. If you feel there's something going awry, then investigate it. Open your eyes. You can still be trusting, but you can trust and delegate responsibly.
So, okay, anything else? I think that's it, you guys. Anyway, thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Doctor, we're going to move it along kind of quickly. We've got a lot of ground to cover. I'm sure everybody here can. Get on up here. You know, there's a lot of stories, and this sort of illustrates that it can happen anywhere to anybody. So, Dr. Khademi practices in Colorado, and I am going to let him take it. There you go.
Let's see what she says. Front office manager. This person had the keys to my life. It's, you know, they always say it's your most trusted employee. Glenn, are you in here? Doyen? Glenn saw the pattern before I did, and we're close enough that he actually said, John, you need to take a look at that. And in hindsight, you can see it. She's getting a new car every year. Cadillac one year. It's like, she says, I don't have a Cadillac. So she was very clearly living beyond her means. She used a variety of methods to take money. I actually didn't bother to turn over all the rocks because that's just, well, how much upsetting things do you really want to discover? So I found enough information that I felt like I could terminate her with cause. And I think you guys talked about this as well. When you terminate people, it's astonishing. You are, as an employer, you're guilty. Whatever it is, you're guilty. They didn't do anything wrong. And in this particular case, I actually got her to admit to payroll fraud in writing. One of the most egregious examples was her child's college tuition was due like in July, and she put 140 hours of vacation payroll in. And they get 40 a year. She put 140 in before that and took that money, paid her daughter's college tuition, so I could use that. and payroll fraud, fake refund checks. I actually did not bother to verify that, but that's how we initially discovered it, is we discovered that a patient was issued a refund check that actually had a balance. So they got their $900 from the insurance company, because we don't take assignment, and they got a $900 check from me, so they got paid $1,800 to get a root canal done by me. That's pretty good, I'd say. I'll take that job. And then she used the company credit card. And this was a discrepancy that I knew was going on for a long time. I couldn't figure it out. And like you guys, I'm busy, you know, here's a stack of checks, sign the checks. Why doesn't your credit card, it just never matches, the balance never matches. Mine matches. We had company credit cards for all the girls, and now the balances always match. But her credit card never matched. And so what she would do is she had personal things on there, and she'd write a check to cover her personal things on there, which you know, how draconian do you want to be? You're in a jam somewhere, fine. Just pay it back. Or you can just, of course, choose not to do that. But she'd write a personal check to reimburse her personal expenses that were on the corporate credit card and then not send that check. And of course, my check goes in, the balance is $1,000. She's got 200 personal, I sent 800, which adds to 1,000. The 200 doesn't go in, and all of a sudden the next month the balance has that 200 in there, and the balance kept, God, what is going on? Why doesn't this match? So I saw that. It took Glenn Doyen to look at this and say, she's stealing from me. So system protects the criminal. We filed for and received, she filed for and received unemployment benefits. I told her your position's been eliminated. She filed for unemployment, was granted it summarily because she told them that she was laid off. And I said, she wasn't laid off, here's the emails. So I had to fight that, and that went to an appeals process. And of course, the labor board sent the appeals to my address that I had not been to for 4 years, because they're really efficient government. And so I didn't get that until like the 11th hour, so I actually made it on time to do the appeal. We had a person who was from the labor board called me during the middle of a patient day to question me over the phone about why I fired her. I said, you got the documents that I sent, right? And she said, yes. And I said, well, and she says, well, this is actually what she said to me on the phone. It's clear that this has been going on for a long time, so it must have been okay with you. And I said, we're done. We can do this in writing from here on out. And so that person actually did another judgment against me in favor of her, granted her employments, and then I went through a second appeals process. I got someone whose IQ was larger than that of a hammer, sent 30 pages of documentation, including all the credit card statements, all the forensic stuff that we've done over a couple of years, that was absolutely ironclad, including her admitted confession of doing payroll fraud. And that was reversed, and then we had a phone trial where she's on the phone, I'm on the phone, and the person with the IQ greater than that of a hammer's on the phone on the other end. And finally, the judgment was reversed, and she actually had to pay back her unemployment. Now, the kicker. It's not even on.
Well, it's flushed down. I don't know what the heck happened to my
That's
slides.
okay.
I hate PowerPoint.
So, I have no
Put it out
idea
there.
how much she actually took, but I didn't bother to find out, because if I wanted to press charges, the person at the police department that I would have called was her husband. In a town of 20,000 people. So I just let it go, didn't file charges against his wife, didn't try to collect everything. That all was water under the bridge and just went about my way. So we actually kind of discovered it in TDO. Glenn was the help to discover that. Now what we do is I have a bookkeeper that is outside of the office, and my accountant is actually in California as well. So the person who, so someone in my office actually writes the checks, but they're actually put into QuickBooks by someone who is outside the office, and I sign every check by hand. And payroll we look at. Now, I didn't look at it before. I just didn't look at it at all. So we look at the payroll reports and people outside of the office. So that's what we're doing to make changes. I also feel like you guys, like, how draconian do you really want to be? You know, and I look back at the group of girls that I have, and they're all here. I brought them all out this time, and they're all out paddleboarding now together. And so I think if you trust, you get trust back. And if there's a bad apple in the group, you eventually discover it. Would you want to practice in a distrustful, hostile environment? So anyway, there are some simple things you can do. I think the lifestyle things is certainly something to look at. If they're living beyond their means, you might take a look at how they're doing that. Okay, I can be done.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you. Dr. Mark Dreyer is coming to us from Florida.
And I don't like PowerPoint either.
I'm just going to put the points up, though.
Okay, so the story is about Tina. She was seemingly the perfect employee. She came highly recommended from office manager of one of my referring dentists. She ran the front desk well. She learned TDO. Even though she was primarily front desk, she was a real team player. She'd jump to the back when we were busy and help out everyone. She even did minor repairs around the office, saving me the cost of a handyman. I know I lose some man points there. I can't fix anything. Okay. So she never missed a day of work during her 3 years with me. When I decided to lay off Norma, my outside bookkeeper, due to the recession, Tina readily volunteered to help me with paying all the bills and all the payroll duties. So I've never been fond of bookkeeping, so I get frustrated trying to balance a checkbook register, so I was glad that she was able to help me. But anyhow, I've learned that in addition to diet and exercise, another secret to healthier, longer life is to avoid stress associated with trying to reconcile a check register. I get really mad with that, so that was good, I thought at the time. I prefer to spend time in clinical aspects of my job rather than delegate the financial aspects to others. So at this point, I decided to discontinue Norma's bookkeeping service. Tina had gained my trust, and I turned it all over to her, never once pondering the possibility that handing over all this financial aspect of the practice could be so potentially financially risky. So even though Tina no longer had the weekly oversight from Norma, I still trusted her. And the table was set perfectly for her to rip me off. So over the next 2 years, I had problem paying the bills, okay? There was a definite reduction in referrals. I attributed this to the Great Recession, which that was kind of when it was at its worst. And I never thought that a second factor in play could be embezzlement. I had to do something at that time I never had to done before, and that is to borrow money from a credit line to pay bills. It was that bad. So anyhow, what allowed me to catch her was something very simple. She was not a good bookkeeper. She wasn't good at reconciling bank statements, and even though I minimally oversaw what she was doing, I was able to pick up on this, and at some point I decided that she was doing her best, and she was helping me as best she could, but I needed to bring Norma back in. So I told her to call Norma, and that just never happened. She seemed to ignore my request to call Norma. So at the time, I didn't think that she was fearing a forensic audit, but in retrospect, that's what it was. So I ended up having to call Norma directly, and she ran a TDO quick pick sync, and like in 10 minutes, she saw some problems, and she started questioning Tina. And Tina wasn't able to give her good answers, so then Norma alerted me, and I became suspicious. That time I called TDO support, and they told me how to run a report that basically avoided transaction report. So in reviewing that, I was able to see that over a period of 2 years, she was voiding these cash transactions, and over 2 years it amounted to 50 grand. Okay, so that's a fair amount, and that money never made it to the bank account. It made it to her wallet, and tax-free. At this point, I dug a little deeper, and I started running some QuickBook reports and noticed that she was reimbursing herself for expenses that she didn't really have any receipts on, and tons of postage expense reimbursements. So we electronically file, and we don't use that much postage, but she was finding that as a way to get some extra money. Once I found all this evidence, I confronted her. She denied everything but readily signed a promissory note agreeing to pay me back. That's a funny thing to do if she's innocent, right? So anyhow, I didn't threaten her with a police report to get her to sign that report either. My brother, who's an attorney, said that would have been illegal. My brother also told me that I'd better gift wrap my case against Tina if I wanted any hope of the DA of filing charges. As it turns out, I probably should have given the DA a Caribbean cruise also, because they didn't want to take the case. So I fired Tina immediately after she signed that promissory note. And even though she denied the theft, she readily asserted that my assistant, her 20-year-old daughter Stephanie, was not involved. Once again, a funny reply for an innocent person. She actually said, no, Stephanie wasn't aware of this, after telling me she didn't do it. So I'm thinking an innocent person would have answered that a little differently. Anyhow, I called in the police, and the detective basically said that this should be an open shut case. He said it's no better than someone coming into a bank with a handgun, basically, but he also prepared me for a possibility the DA wouldn't want to take the case. As it turns out, that was correct. The DA didn't take it. So the only good thing to come out of all this is that her daughter, Stephanie, is an excellent assistant. She's been with me for like 5 years. She never misses a day of work. Sounds like a pattern. But she is, she's not allowed anywhere near anything financial. She's skilled in the assistant scope. And when I told her I was going to try to put her mom in jail, was she okay with that? She wanted to stay around? She said, yeah, she was crying. And she's stayed with me all these years since. It's probably been 3-4 years at least. So to date, Tina is unpunished. Not surprisingly, she never made a single payment on that note to me, and I've decided not to pursue the collection. I figure with her little assets she have, I'd probably spend more money going after whatever she had and would lose more in lost income if I did that. So I haven't gone after her. The main lesson I've learned is what the other people have mentioned is you can't allow a single person to handle financial affairs. The famous Reagan quote, trust but verify. Additionally, I'm now the only one that can do any sort of patient ledger adjustment and TDO. So the passwords allow you to customize who can do what, and I'm the only one that can do that. So Norma is once again coming in the office once a week to do the payroll. She does the TDO, QuickBooks print, sync. She audits all the day sheets and bank deposits from previous week. Ironically, I've saved $7,000 on her fees over 2 years, and it cost me $70,000 in embezzlement. So that didn't quite work out how I'd planned it. So it's an embarrassing story to relate. It's a real reflection of a real dereliction of duties on my part, and I always default to thinking the best of fellow man. This experience has taught me to be much more careful in the future, and hopefully my story will help someone in the room avoid a similar embezzlement in his or her own office. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we have a story coming from Iowa. Right? You're in Iowa, right? Okay.
So my story is a little more recent in that it's still kind of ongoing. Employee I had for a couple years, kind of same theme as everybody else. She was a great employee, really upbeat, really fun to work with, and kind of noticed that the way it kind of all came to light was that I kind of noticed that her lunch breaks didn't really coincide with the time clock punches. And so she'd like go out to lunch and she'd be gone 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, but her time clocks were always like on the dot, like 15 minutes for like punching out for lunch. And so I just like, I don't take a lunch, I work through lunch. And so I'm like, oh, I'm probably just, the passage of time isn't probably quite what I think it is as I'm working on a case. So one day I decided just to kind of really keep an eye on how long she's gone for lunch and then kind of look at the time clock afterwards and see how long she was gone. And it turns out it wasn't just in my head. She was leaving for an extended period of time and coming back. And then what she was doing was back when she was, this is my front desk person. So then she would clock out when she was already back, and then she'd watch the clock, and then 15 minutes later she'd clock back in. So the time period near to the length of time. So finally I started writing it down when she was actually gone, and then I compared it to the actual time clock, and so then I wrote her up for it, and we had a sit down where I wrote her up and just kind of went through all that with her, and she admitted to it and said it wouldn't happen anymore, and I thought that was the end of it. So the next day she doesn't show up for work, and I get an email, just was her email resignation saying she would quitting over that issue, and she felt like I had attacked her, but didn't feel like, in the meeting, I didn't feel like it was a personal attack. I felt I had sufficient evidence to write her up for it, and I didn't even fire her for it. I didn't know if that was sufficient enough to fire somebody or not. And other than that, she'd been a good employee for a couple of years, so I figured, this would be kind of like first strike, and then hopefully nothing ever would happen again, but she kind of decided that was enough reason to quit. So, I thought I was kind of the victim in losing a good employee over something pretty minor. But then when my current front desk person was already working for the practice just as a chairside assistant, and so she started working up front, and she just in like the first day found a stack of insurance checks hidden in a filing cabinet, and it wasn't just like in a place where you might just set it there to work on it later when you have time. It was like very well hidden in the back of the filing cabinet. And then there's a stack of checks written out from patients where they hadn't written in the practice name or Dr. Jason Bouska. It was just blank yet. So that really scared me a bit. And so then we kind of all talked, me and the rest of the staff, and like, oh yeah, she's been stealing office supplies too. And I'm like, oh, why didn't anybody ever come and tell me this? So, but she was so nice and friendly. They didn't want to, nobody suspected the checks part, but they didn't want to come and say anything because she was a single mom and they didn't want her to lose her job, and they just kind of figured she was needed to steal some toilet paper and paper towels and cleaning supplies. And as far as I know, that was all she was stealing from the practice. Which really isn't, much else to steal. I don't think she'd probably be stealing endo files or anything, but so then I called Allison up and she helped me go through the TDO, and really haven't found any hard evidence yet, but still my accountant's kind of looking into it because we don't know if any of those checks that weren't written out, if she wrote her name on them prior to that. Looking at 2014 and previously, the bank account statements really closely match the practice financials. So not worried a whole lot about a large sum of money, but it's still very suspicious circumstances. So now I've been paying more close attention to like checks coming in. I have them scan the checks into the patient's charts, just to, so I can visually see it later, making sure that what's supposed to be coming in, it matches what TDO and QuickBooks say, and then syncing them, and then just more or less trying not to be so, I guess, lazy about what's going on in the practice and just putting too much trust into one person.
Thank you. And our last speaker today is going to be Dr. Adam Davis from Tennessee.
I'm going to kind of start with how I think things got started with my office. So it was, Sherry was with us about 4 years, and not long after she started, my wife had some health problems, and that kind of led me to giving people stuff to do, and as long as it was getting taken care of, I was trying to get home and worry about stuff at home. And I think that's when things started. Is I've talked to Gary a couple times, and it seems like every one of us had the opportunity. There were some perfect circumstances that came together, and that person saw the opportunity and said, oh, there it is, and I'm going to take it. So I wasn't checking everything that I should have been checking, and sorry. I've got a minute, I'm good. And so the other ironic thing is, after we figured things out, same story as John, her boyfriend is a part-time policeman. And I'm in a fairly small town outside of Nashville. So we go through, my accountant wasn't a forensic accountant, but he had been one early in his career. So we made this extensive thing. I had this box that weighed like 60 pounds of paperwork. We give it to the detective, and he calls back a few weeks later, and he says, when are y'all going to get me all the rest of the stuff and everything? And we're like, you even opened the box? I mean, it's all in there. He clearly never even opened the box. And it was like this series of things that you're like, you can't make this stuff up. It was funny, but it wasn't. And so what ours was fairly simple thing. It was taking cash, and in addition to that, the transactions that Mark was talking about. There was one particular one I remember where in the write-offs there was a write-off for a referring office to make the office happy. Which, that may happen from time to time, but as I checked into that particular patient, that hadn't happened. So there's, unfortunately, a myriad of ways that this could happen. Unless you're looking at a lot of things, you're not going to catch it. But now, as we've gone through and corrected some of our systems, and then the other thing that's kind of sad, I guess, is even I've got 2 staff that have been with me 5 years, one that's been there 4 years. After everything happened, they came and talked to me, but up to that point, they were afraid to, because they were scared to death of her. She had everybody pinned down to where everybody thought they were going to lose their job if they ever went and talked to anybody. So, because they would come to her, and she would never tell me, or something that I needed addressed, she would never tell them. It was all this spiral that stopped with her. And the other thing I found out is afterwards, our front desk people that I thought were fairly well trained didn't really know anything because she kept everything to herself. And I guess 2 years ago at the meeting, we were at lunch. Gary wanted to have her come talk at the meeting. And here we are now. So, it's really just simple, I think, for the most part, in that I wasn't as conscientious about looking at things as I should have. And then that opportunity, you get busy. All of us get busy with things. And I was worried about stuff at home and not worried about the office. And, we weren't having financial trouble. I was paying my taxes and we had enough money to pay the bills and everything. So, everything seemed fine. Until you started looking at it, and especially cash. When I first started talking to my accountant, I was like, we don't take that much cash. Until you start adding it up. Has anybody looked at how much cash they take in? So some of the things that, like, we have a sign up now that says if you pay in cash, you must receive a receipt. My accountant had me do a few little things that, if they make a difference or not, I don't know. The other thing I think it's hard to comprehend is, all of us were in the same boat where this was like your key person. I mean, they've got everything, right? So we had 2 offices, keys to the offices, email, TDO, all this stuff. So the weekend that we knew everything had happened. My sister's an HR manager, so I kind of talked to my sister about how I needed to handle everything. We were going to call her, and that night before at like 10 o'clock, I'm talking to my IT guy and a couple other people to see, can I lock her out of everything? And do I know her email password and things that I'd never even thought of before. And now, if you're going to get rid of that person, are you going to get the key from them? How are you going to maintain all that stuff? So in both our offices now, I have video cameras. Some of them are in different places, but one's pointed at the front desk. In our new office, we have card key access. So you can't get into the office any other time than when I set that key to work. So it's not a key, it's the magnetic thing. So, and I think it's, it's, you don't want to feel like you can't trust anybody. But then again, I think people have to know the consequences. So some of the girls that have been with me for a while knew what was going on. And after things have happened, I've learned a lot about kind of why I didn't know what was going on. So it kind of isn't a lot of fun to go through, but we're in a much better place than we were. Everybody's happier and we've moved on. But the hardest part to believe is that the police won't do anything. I had 2 years of records with all of it there, and they're not doing anything. Policeman came and met with me, and he went down this list. I'm going to interview all your employees. I'm going to have an IRS person look into her lifestyle. And he went down all this list of things. He has done 0 of any of those things. And I've talked to him, emailed him. It's just amazing. I think that's the hardest part, is that you look at this and you go, it's obvious we have lots of evidence that this happened. It was happening during a course of employees changing. One person was consistently there. and now it's not happening. This is what happened. And then we don't want to do anything. So I think that's kind of the frustrating part. I don't know if it's just they figure, doctors make enough money, we're not going to worry with that. It's not like we have enough crime in our town to have big cases. I don't know what else they're doing. Maybe a lot of kids are huffing paint. I don't know. But I think that the part about knowing what you need to do if something happens, you might want to have like I don't know what you would call that list, but some sort of thing to where you can get to it, because most of the time we rely on our people to do those things. Somebody's writing the checks, you may sign them, or your accountant does this or that, but at that time, on Saturday night at 10 o'clock when you got to do that, it's nice to know what all you got to do. So that part was kind of the hardest part, where I was afraid she was going to be able to get to something. I mean, credit cards, and she was a numbers person. I guarantee you this day, she could probably still spit out my social, my NPI, my credit card numbers. I mean, she memorized all that stuff. So it was super easy to kind of go through all that stuff and start thinking, gosh, what all does she know? So, and that's the hard part too, is people in your office know things about you that you wish they didn't. People up front got to know those numbers and all those things. But that's just part of the way it works. So, I think that's it. Oh, yes, sorry. The last thing, I don't know if I'm going to get anywhere with this, but I have a few friends that are politically connected, I should say. And one of the things I'd love to be able to do is, they have the list for sex offenders and all these other things. I mean, these people don't do this one time. This girl, I found out afterwards that supposedly they couldn't quite prove it, but a couple of places she worked before, they just knew something wasn't right. And they just move from your office to your office to your office and do it again and again, and there's no consequences because the police don't want to do anything. And then you can't say anything. She left us. She had worked for one of our referring doctors. So she took a job with him, which of course he had quit referring to us immediately afterwards, because God knows what she told him. And my attorney says you can't tell him anything, because if anything happens and he fires her, you're in trouble. It's just you're the bad guy and you got screwed. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's one thing I'd love to be able to see if they could do, be able to come up with something where if people are involved in handling money and they do something bad, that they're on some list and they never get to handle money again. So that's my hope.
Thank you. I do want to say thank you to everybody who shared. This is not an easy topic to talk about. It's a very emotionally charged topic. This is somebody that you trust and think that they have your best interests at heart, and you find out otherwise. And that is a very hard lesson to learn. There's some common themes, as you guys heard throughout these stories. It's always a trusted employee. They've got the keys to the kingdom. They know what's going on in your checking account. They are, your most valued, they're your go-to person. The longer this goes on without being noticed, the bigger it's going to get. It's going to start at a $50 reimbursement check for postage, and it's going to turn into a $5,000 reimbursement check for whatever the creative idea they have. Common theme is that the doctor wasn't checking. You have something else. Life is always going on. There's always something happening that is distracting your attention. And so when you're not double checking, when there's not that oversight in place, so if someone is interested in taking advantage of that fact, they absolutely will. The legal system is long, it's drawn out, and it generally protects the victims. Protects the criminals over the victims. So not only are you victimized because you've been embezzled and this money has been taken from you and you have been violated by someone you trusted, you're victimized again because they're getting unemployment money on your dime, or they're suing you for they're doing this or that or the other thing. It's an uphill battle, and a lot of people don't even bother fighting it because I forget who said it, but it would have cost more to try to recover those funds than they ever would have seen in recovery. If you do manage to recover anything, it's going to be pennies on the dollar. And this is a fundamentally life-altering event. It's going to change the way you practice. It's going to change the way you look at people. And it's not something that you ever fully recover from, I don't think. How to protect yourself. I did have that printout for everybody. If you did not get a copy, I have a few more up here at the front. It will be available on the knowledge base on our website. Make it a requirement that every employee sign in under their own username and have a password. Don't have all of your assistants log in as assistant and all of your front office log in as front. Everybody needs to log in as their own username, because every single thing that they do is tracked with their username. If they receive a cash payment and they void the cash payment and do a credit adjustment, there are reports to catch every single one of those clicks that they did. Check your voided transactions report. Check your financial audit trail. The voided transactions report, when the staff member voids a transaction in TDO, there is a trail of that. It requires them to enter a reason why. Make sure you have those reasons current. If they're choosing courtesy for everything, that would be a red flag. There's reasons. They're doing an insurance write-off. They posted an incorrect fee. There's reasons for the write-offs. Everything should not fall under courtesy or make referring doctor's office happy. The voided transactions report and the financial audit trail are both available if you have full access, which all of the doctors should have when they log in. You don't want to have that available to your staff members. And the biggest thing is ask questions. If they know that someone's watching, even if you're not watching as closely as perhaps you should be, if they think there's a chance they might get caught, they are less likely to do something than if they think that they just have a blank check to just do whatever they want and nobody's paying attention and no one's going to catch them. So on the sheet, because we're out of time, on the sheet it walks through things that you can do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. The QuickBooks synchronization will help you also to keep track of those things. And so, again, I am going to put that sheet, if you didn't get a copy, I'm going to put it, it'll be available on the knowledge base. But you can always email me too, I can email it to you. But the biggest thing is pay attention, ask questions. Don't let anybody have enough power in your practice to take your practice down.
Can I make one comment, Allison?
Yes.
There's a dental embezzlement specialty firm in Canada called Prosperident, and they have a free monthly newsletter. Sign up to it, read it, let your staff know that you're reading it, and you're minding the store. So prosperident.com.
Yes.
When you have a doctor sign into TDO, I know all my staff members have personal passwords and IDs, but I have multiple rooms that I work out of. It's a nuisance to have a 5-minute, 10-minute time off where you have to keep logging into TDO, so I just log in and they stay logged on. Is there a way you can put in something that says to void a transaction or to do anything like that, there's another password that I have to put in, apart from just...
There's not. No, and I'll tell you, it's a bigger nuisance to try to recover $50,000 of stolen funds than to log out of TDO. Everybody, when they step away from a workstation, everyone, doctors included, they should be logging off when they step away from that workstation to protect themselves. If I was working at the front desk and I got up and I walked away and somebody else was logged in under my username and took a cash payment and voided it, that's on me because I didn't log off before leaving the workstation. So I know it's frustrating and it seems like this huge inconvenience to have to log off and back on when you switch rooms or, you walk away for a little bit, but from a protection standpoint of protecting yourself, it just makes good sense to not give someone the opportunity to take advantage. Yes?
What if you limit your own account and then have a second account for yourself that you would never leave logged on? So like my account for writing of notes had no access to anything but writing of notes.
You could do that.
And that would give you a little more protection.
Sure. Then you have to remember, you have to make sure the password stays the same. Or remember 2 passwords. Did you have a question?
I kind of have a question regarding adjustments. To me, and maybe it's just my perception, but I feel like that kind of is where the weak link lies a lot of times, at least in my office, because we do the daily snapshot, check it, compare the batches, not what you guys are doing. That becomes tedious sometimes. We try to do that every day, but I think if somebody up front were just to wait a few days, then they could just do the adjustment, because I'm not going to go back to that snapshot again.
That's what your financial audit trail is for. The financial audit trail will show you transactions that were done on a different day than it was dated for. So if they came in and did a transaction today and they dated it for Monday, that transaction is going to show on the financial audit trail.
Right, and I'm aware of that, but my difficulty is I still have to go through every single adjustment compared to every single EOB, because all they have to do is manipulate the amount. If you know what I mean, and just hide it or embed it in an insurance adjustment.
Doing it as an adjustment of that nature is very, it's very difficult because there isn't, so what happened in most of these offices is they took a cash payment, it has nothing, or the check was left, the paid to the order of was left blank. When you're talking about those types of insurance adjustments, what you look at there's a breakdown snapshot. You can kind of assess what percentage of write-offs are being done for each of the insurance companies. Ultimately, if somebody really wants to hurt your practice, they're going to find a way to do it. If that is their goal, they're going to be able to do it. But if you are paying attention and you are checking those reports and everyone is aware that you are paying attention to what is happening in your office, even if you don't have it down to every detail, they're going to be a lot less likely to try to slip something past you. Because they know you're watching and there's a good chance they're going to get caught.
Allison, if you don't do an adjustment, if you just change the fee to match with say the patient made 2 payments, one was with a check, so that it's hard, and they wrote the name in and everything. The fee matched that first check, but there was another balance of maybe $300 that they paid that in cash. You could.
Again, the voided transaction, they would have to void the fee and repost it.
Yeah, but the fee, yeah.
We could seriously sit here all afternoon and come up with 1,000 different ways of people to manipulate things. Truly. Every single person in here could probably think of something. If they want to do it bad enough, they will. But that's why you have to keep on top of.
I really think the key piece of the puzzle is all of our employees knew we weren't watching. That's it. That's it. All of us. I'm way guilty. That's why I can't really be mad at it. My fault.
I hope there's chocolate in the breaks. Yes. Wait, I'm sorry, one more thing.
One thing they forgot to say is, we have in our insurance policy, an investment clause. And I went to an attorney that I dealt with this kind of stuff. And he said, well, have you applied for your insurance company? I said, well, no. I had the policy with me. He said, right now we call the insurance companies because it's time limited. So if you know you've been embezzled, you have sort of proof, you got to immediately report it to your insurance company. Or,
What he was saying is that he had through his insurance policy he had embezzlement clause, but it is time sensitive in order for you to report it and receive benefits on that. So as soon as you have anything, hard evidence, anything that you can prove that you were embezzled, to make sure you make that phone call. So thank you all very much for your time. Thank you.